if you're missing the joke, if you're not looking in the mirror, I know that about me. And I'm a work in progress. I've been sober since August 20th, 1975. I have I landed in the Pacific group of Alcoholics Anonymous on my very first meeting, and I had no idea it was a very activist group that was, very much out in the world, out in the Salvation Army, going to the prisons, working with others, having a lot of activities, watching people turn one, staying up until midnight, and I would have run. I would have run. But I was desperate and surrendered, and I laid down my weapons because I was tired. And I still know when I pick up one of those weapons that gets between me and God, me and you, me and my happiness, me and my joy. Because I think happiness is fleeting. That's just something I've had to learn in sobriety. Happiness is fleeting, but joy is tied up to my gratitude. Joy is all wrapped up in my gratitude. And every morning when I wake up, the first thing I know is that I don't have a hangover and I have another day of sobriety. And I'm immediately grateful for this gift that we've all been given. If we're sitting here tonight, sitting with the power that's kept you sober today, I'm sitting with the power that kept me sober today. And that connects us even in this Zoom. That's the language of the heart, because I cannot do this alone. My first little thought that I wasn't doing it alone was when I pulled my hand down for 31 days because I didn't really want to raise it, but somebody raised it for me and then said, you have to raise your hand for 30 days if you want to stay here. And I was like, all right. I had a wired jaw. My jaw had been broken in 3 places. My nose, I had a concussion, thrown off the side of the road like a piece of trash in Palm Springs, California. That was my last drunk. And I landed in the hospital, and I landed at a place in West Los Angeles where I was drinking cheap wine through the wires on the face where the tooth had been kicked out because I didn't know anything else to do. I had nothing left in my life. And on August 20th, this guy said, you have to leave, you're depressing me. And I called my mother, and my mother said, Sharon, we can't help you anymore. Go to the Salvation Army. And right there, a $20 bill, you would have a different speaker. If my mother would have said a $20 bill, this is the last time, please don't go home, you break our hearts. I can't sleep at night. I don't know where you are. She didn't say any of that. She didn't say your father said we can't help you, because I am so defiant. I am so defiant. That is my taproot. That has helped me survive. That she knew if she would have said to me, even in the condition I was in, your father said, I would have gone, stood in front of the next bus because I'll show you. I'll just die. And that's what King Alcohol took me. No feeling. What's that Desperado song? Losing all my highs and lows. Ain't it funny how the feeling goes away? I had no feeling when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. No feelings. And I was pretty dead to the world. And I was an ember of life. And you picked me up and you brought me in and you sat me down. And I didn't even know where I was. And you handed me a new life. All I had to do was stay, not drink in between meetings, and sit for a while and feel safe, and to start getting some sort of a mind back. I was jumbled, but I raised my hand for the 31st day and I went, oh, I don't stay sober 31 days. And I pulled my hand down. I had that feeling down your spine where you just shiver, because it was something that got me, because I realized that I didn't stay sober, that I got the we part of it right away. I got something in the room that kept me sober 31 days. Even in jail, I found this person drinking their horrible apple wine that I would drink. I didn't stay sober 31 days. How did I stay sober 31 days? What an amazing power that was at that moment. And that's the power that is in my life, to become friends with, to become a child of, to become reliant upon, to become something I can take every piece of my fear to become my running buddy, to become the one that goes out the door before me in the day, the one that I say, if you're here, God, I'm here, let's go. The one that I when I wake up, I say my dog's name about, I don't know, 10 times because I need to. And my dog's name spelled backwards, D-O-G spelled backwards, is God. So I say it, she thinks her name is God in the morning. I say, God, 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 God. I try to get myself in some sort of a place where I know I'm calling on God in the morning. I'm calling on God. If you're there, I'm here. Let's go. And my dog is happy, and then they get fed. And then I have my prayer and meditation, which is necessary food for me. Necessary food. If I don't take care of myself physically, mentally, spiritually, um, I'm not emotionally sober. I am somewhere else, in not in my heart, um, back in the head, back in the, the emotional swings. Clancy was my sponsor for 36 of my 45 and a half years. And when he passed away last year, it was hard. He walked me through a lot of hard things in my life. But he used to talk about the pendulum swinging, and like a grandfather clock pendulum that will swing up, and then it'll come down to the bottom, and they'll swing up to the other side, and it'll come back down to the bottom where it's almost still. And Clancy used to say, alcoholics, we swing way up on one side emotionally about, how wonderful life is and how much in love I am with you. And uh, I mean, I've waited for you my whole life. And then it swings down and it passes through the bottom where about this much of it is normal. Clancy said, just alcoholics, we just pass through normal all up to the other side where it's, I hate the way you breathe. Please cut your nose hairs. I don't like what, whatever it is. All the way up to here. You look at me funny in the morning. What's wrong with you? All the way. And then it comes back down and it swings through normal again. We pass through. We don't stop in normal, alcoholics. And he said, the steps and God and the traditions and fellowship and love and awakening and service pull those emotional swings down, so that we don't have to swing so far out of the park. And it's hard for me to come back from one of those huge swings. It's hard for me to come back when my defiance gets a hold of me. It talked about, I love that it said the benighted ones in here, and I looked up benighted and it said, well, it says favorable, but it also says not malignant. I guess if we are benighted in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're not malignant. We can be bad, but we're not malignant. I like to look up words. But, I sponsored a girl, and it was talking about how we have the joy, the early joy for somebody who's getting it. And how it becomes such a beautiful moment of grace that I'm sober, that I want to help somebody else, that's like a transformative time in my life when I mean, she kicked me. I tried to tie her shoes, and she was drunk and kicked me. And I dropped her off at her house, and she didn't say thank you, and she slammed the door. And then I get home and she calls me and asks me to sponsor her. And it was like, okay. So we got started, and she was a spoiled little girl, a spoiled little girl. And we would work in the book, we would read. I'd say, okay, can you write about this? And sometimes I would get, something on a little tiny piece of paper. Well, do you think you could write just another sentence on that for me? But she started to change. And she went to a lot of meetings. And I remember one night she called me, and we'd been working on this one area of her life, this one area with her parents of her life. And she just couldn't get it. And she wasn't acting right with them. And then I get a call, and it wakes me up at midnight. She'd been at the coffee shop. And she said, you know what I heard tonight at the meeting? We talked about it at the coffee shop, and oh my God, I'm going to do this. And it was everything I had been trying for her to get for like the last month. And I just I remember holding the phone up and saying, up to God, wherever, I just went, thank you. Thank you. I don't care where she hears it. That's the love I had for her. I don't care where she hears it. I don't care where her growth comes from. If it's moving her forward in the area of love and tolerance and amends and being of service and helpful to others. Yeah. And that little girl turned out to be, she was a taker, a huge taker, lived off her parents' money, ended up in Hawaii. Her dad retired, and he went over there, and she went over there to help him with the restaurant he bought in Kauai. And he died 6 months later, and she had this restaurant to run in Kauai. And then Aniki came and just took it away. The big hurricane just flattened this whole beautiful restaurant. And she said she was standing in the middle of the rubble and she heard a voice that said, "We need nurses." And this little taker of a girl went back and got her doctorate in helping metastatic breast cancer patients. She got her nursing degree, she got her master's, and then went got her doctorate. And she built a clinic in Santa Fe, New Mexico, moved her horses and everything over to Santa Fe. And she passed away about 3 years ago of metastatic breast cancer. And in the clinic that she built treated her. And they loved her, and they have an annual walkathon for her. And but she was one of the first ones early in my sobriety that I just plain loved with no price tag, no price tag. And I think it's really beautiful to be able to have that kind of true love for somebody else who is getting a chance to be transformed and reborn and rub out the record, as Chuck C used to talk about. We don't just change the record, we rub it out. We rub it out. There are times those amends are so powerful, we can rub it out. And so, that was, when you were reading that, I thought about Beth. I thought about Beth and how beautiful the transformation was, not just for me to see, but for a whole community to see. And, we don't know where our example goes. We don't know what our example's all about. We have no idea who's watching, no idea. And, I've been sober a long time, and I've been, my older sister was the hero child. And she was the one that, saved us all the younger ones from a fire when I would think I was 6. So she got a big award from the governor. And she was always the one that, oh, Nancy's, she's off the charts with her IQ. She's off the charts with her talent. She's off the charts with everything. She went up to New York City, went to college, then she got a master's degree in New York City, and she just moved through life just beautifully. So I was following in her footsteps, and it wasn't comfortable. So she wasn't a drinker. She was planning on how to get out of Iowa early. She was smart. And that's where I grew up, by the way, was in Iowa, which was my first resentment. I had to get over that one too. But I looked for the mothership as a little girl because I knew I didn't belong there. But my sister was planning how to make a life, and I'm planning how to drink because I liked what alcohol did for me. I was a seeker as a little girl. I'm still a seeker. I don't like little designs and plans. I don't like anything little. I'm a more girl. I'm a more drinker. I'm a more fun. Let's keep the party going. I was one of those. I just more. And that is part of who I am. And in sobriety, I get to love God more. I get to know God more. I get to practice. I get to practice more. I mean, I have a piano and I love to play it, but if I don't practice Claire de Lune, I can't play it. I got to practice. I got to practice my prayer and meditation. I got to practice it. And I have to continue. If I stop, it's going to be hard to start again. Those spiritual muscles get weak. For me, they do. And you pick them up after not using them for a while and everything hurts, or everything hurts getting to that muscle, getting to the spiritual tools again. Okay, I'm on my knees. There doesn't seem to be any other way around this. I guess I'm going to have to pick up the spiritual tools. Okay. I mean, it's our surrenders aren't so pretty sometimes. I like to remember, because I've looked back over my life in sobriety. Don't wait too long in between surrenders, Sharon. Don't wait. I'll just, like me and more girl, I'll take it to the end, and I'm looking off my balcony going, I don't think third floor is going to cut it. I mean, I've been there. My husband passed away. I had a key card to the 44th floor, and I was in a huge amount of grief, huge. And I had no idea what to do with it. I had no idea where to put it. And the place I was working didn't know how to support me at all. And I kept looking in the wrong place. It's like looking for love on all the wrong places. And this very corporate job I had, this career I had for 30 years, they didn't know how to treat grief. They ignored me. People wouldn't even, like in the elevator, wouldn't look at me. I went and sat in my boss's office after I came back to work, and he said, "Sharon, I'm sorry this happened to you, but if you can't do your job, will you let me know?" That was rough. That's a rough thing where I have to walk in every day into an office that doesn't support me at all in this huge, I mean, I was with that man for, I was with that man for like 24 years. And I didn't know how to navigate through this, but I'll tell you who did. You guys. You were there for me. You were there for me when my father was killed in 1999, coming up on that day this next week. And he was killed in an accident on his land. And when I got off the plane, in my mother's home was Alcoholics Anonymous. In my mother's home. You guys are the ones that know how to just sit and hold my hand, drive me to a meeting, know that maybe I haven't eaten and take me somewhere and we eat, and you know that I'm going to have enough food for the next day because you're going to order big, because I'm not taking care of myself because you can see it, but I'm showing up. That's the point. I don't stop showing up. I sit in my seat. I sit in my seat and I say yes to my commitments, and I'll drive where I have to drive. I'll get on a plane. I'll do whatever I have to do. And it's not fun and it's not easy. And I'm not always that nice. I've learned how, you can't have an open mind with an open mouth. So much of the time I just try to zip it if I'm like that. I just try to zip it. And there's been some times that I've had just, I would have missed it if I wouldn't have finally opened my hands and just accepted where I am. Just accepted where I am in life. And if you look up the word acceptance, it also means to receive. So when I finally loosen my grip, when I finally unclench my fist, when I finally quit grasping, I can get a gift. And it's not that I'm looking for it. It's not that I even remember. I just know grasping is painful. Being not awake is painful. I've been awakened, and when I'm not awake, it's painful. But my defiance will justify it. See, I was a victim when I came in here. Legitimately, I was a victim of violent crime in the state of California. I have a number of it and everything. And they even sent me some money when I was sober about a year and said, "This is your whatever from the state of California." I went, "Oh, gee, thanks, $200." Okay. But, I'm a legitimate in the paper victim of violent crime. So I am a victim, and I was really good at having the list why I was. In the end of my drinking, I had nothing left, nothing left. I had a backpack with a book, Be Here Now by Baba Ram Dass. I didn't know how to be here now. I had been fired from every seedy little local bar in the French Quarter of New Orleans where I had been living for 3 years. Nobody, even my alcoholic friends, didn't want to drink with me anymore. And I am in Barney's Beanery in West Hollywood trying to get to Hawaii. I have the clothes on my back, no place to stay. I don't have a gallbladder. I have pancreatitis. I'm 25 years old and I'm dying of alcoholism. And this girl is sleeping on the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous in this bar. And we're going, oh, what's her thing, And so the bartender took away her keys and ordered her a taxi so she could go to her A&A meeting. And I think people were signing a court card or something. I don't really know, but they were signing something and passing it down and signing something and passing it down. And so she went out and fell into this taxi cab, and we all gave her a toast. Go for your Chris, go to A&A. And I felt sorry for her. I had nothing going in my life. Nothing. I didn't even know where I was going to sleep that night. And I felt sorry for her having to go to Alcoholics Anonymous because being a victim was a step up. It was a step up in my world. And I could justify being a victim. So that's what came into Alcoholics Anonymous, a broken, tired little victim that had pretty much the snot kicked out of her. So I was pretty dead when I came to you. And I couldn't talk for the first 3 months I was here. I was wired shut. So you guys like to talk to somebody who can't talk back. And I learned a lot. People would, talk to me a lot. And nobody really expected anything much from me, which was good because why I stayed Why I stayed was you were kind to me. And I have to remember there's always room for kindness. Even if I'm off kilter, even if I'm somewhere else, that newcomer deserves kindness. That's what kept me here. And then I don't know about you guys, but I like the Dalai Lama. I like the Pope. I like to read all these people, Mother Teresa, all of them. And Dalai Lama says that, love is no judgment. Love is the absence of judgment. And that was like, wow, wow. And it talks about in the book how we talk about people. We talk about people because we're concerned, and that's where it stops. I know when I'm going into judgment. I know when I'm going into some sort of area that I'm going to have to pray for people and have some amends. And I know when I'm going there. But if I'm concerned about you and I haven't seen you in a while, there's something to do about that. But if I'm judging you for not showing up and your life and this and that, I can't do anything. How useful, what a waste of my time and energy. And I am at that part in my life where I don't want to waste my time if I can help it. I do not want to waste my time. My time here is precious. Helping others is just what we are here to do. We're page 77, and that takes a lot of work. Fit ourselves. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves, which takes work. daily work, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times a day. Fit myself to be of maximum service, not minimum, bigger than I think I can do. Maximum service to God, first of all, and the people about us. It doesn't say just to people in AA, because I went through that phase. I don't know about you. I went through that phase. I'm only going to be nice to people in AA. I don't know what that was. And this was back in the day, they had Easy Does It stickers on their car. I remember that. So, oh yeah, okay, here's your parking spot then. Or, there was a lady in our group and she was from Australia and she used to drive like 90 miles an hour. And it was like, oh my God, and she had Easy Does It on her car. And we were all like, oh, she can't be driving around like that. What a terrible example. So somebody in the parking lot one night, there's a solution for everything. Put on the sticker on top of Easy Does It. It said, this too shall pass. I think we can figure anything out. You got to have a sense of humor. You got to laugh. Oh my God, I hadn't laughed in so long. And that's all I do now is I laugh. I laugh a lot. I laugh at myself a lot just because I'm on to me. And it's like, oh, here we go again, but that's good. The laughter cuts it. It talked about cutting it. I mean, how am I going to cut it? I've got pruning shears. I've got those pruning things. Sometimes my defiance is so thick, it's like wire. It's like wire. I can't get through it. But I can start with pruning the little growths that are popping up. That taproot goes deep. And I know that if you are a gardener, you know anything about, I don't know, raising anything in the ground, that the taproot is it just goes crazy and you don't know where it's going to pop up next. And to pull it up, you need gloves and you need, you practically need a wrench to get it out of there. And you got to make it all wet and you got to cry all those tears to get to the bottom of this taproot of defiance. It's in my way. It's in my way of happiness. It's in my way of being useful. It's in my way of helpfulness. It's in my way of being the daughter I wanted to be for my mom and dad all those years and the member of the family. So there's a whole bunch of tears on that taproot where finally it starts to loosen a little bit. But I don't think I've ever gotten it all out. I think those roots are deep because it still shows up. But I'm aware of it most of the time because I'm working with you. I'm listening to you. My day is full of you, whoever you are. Maybe it's my neighbor. Maybe it's the people I work with. Maybe it's, it's just wherever I see it. When I'm losing my patience, when I'm irritated, or that heartbeat gets fast. It was 2 years ago, and I know I'm all over the place, but I'm just storytelling. That's just what I got to do, and it works for me. So I hope it's working for you. But 2 years ago, I got released. I got separated from my 30-year career, and they was just like, well, thank you very much. We're moving to Dallas and we're not inviting you. So here's your separation agreement if you'd like to sign it. And you know what? I was grateful. And the people that knew me that in that time of my life, they were grateful. I was killing myself with defiance and didn't even know it, because this is the place that treated me how they treated me. This is the place that had no heart, it felt like. This is the place that when people left, they would put it more on managers' desks. And I had a lot on my plate. And I thought, I can do it. I'll show you. That's where it went for me. That's where my grief went. I can do it. I'll show you. I would go to a meeting that would get over at 10:30 at night. I would drive back to the office in Century City, go up to the 35th floor of this building, which was haunted, by the way. It was haunted. It was built on Native American land, and they shouldn't have ever built it there. Things would break and not work, and I would be sitting in there working. I'll show them, with my heart rate up to 166, my sugar rising. My doctor said, "What is wrong with you? You're not the person that I know." And she had to put me on blood pressure medicine. She said, "You're going for a stroke here." And I just thought, good. It's like, oh my God, your defiance can just get in the way of any sort of usefulness. And this is 2019, you guys, 18, 19. And the motion detectors would go on, like there were people walking around on the floor, and I would just talk to those spirits, go, "Come on, get me, I don't care." It's like, if you would have seen me, you would have gone, "What is wrong with her?" Oh, it was big. It was big. And then they would all be there one morning, and I would be there tired and do it again one more day. And they'd look at me because maybe I'd done an all-nighter. I would stay there sometimes all night. And then I would be stand at the door, and they would look at me, and I go, "You guys know where the defibrillator is, don't you?" You know, our humor, it's very dark. And they would look at me like, I said, "No, really, you know where the defibrillator is, right?" And they would like, and I said, "Okay, just kidding." It's like, I didn't know if I was going to stroke out right there, but boy, isn't it crazy? I'll kill myself proving it to you. Sober, sober. Now, at 10 years of sobriety, well, I married boys girl on AA campus when I was new. I had made amends to my family. Thank God I had a sponsor louder than my head. She made me go home at a year and make those amends. And my mother and I were great. And my dad said, "Well, I just wanted you to be happy." And that was it. And we had looked at each other for 6 years by the time I got sober. I had broken my father's heart. He said, "What is wrong with you? You look different. You're acting funny." When I was in college, he came to see me. I cut my wrists. And I said, "Okay, Dad, sit down. I'll tell you what's wrong with me." And I told my dad things that fathers don't need to know about their children, especially their girls. And I pushed him away emotionally because I knew whatever I had, which I didn't know alcoholism, whatever I had, he couldn't fix me. And my dad could fix anyone. He could fix machines. He could fix people. People came to him for direction. He was that kind of guy. But I knew he wouldn't be able to fix me. And I pushed him away, and we didn't look at each other for 8 years. We did not look at each other. We didn't ride in the same car. If we were at grandma's house at Thanksgiving, I was sitting with the kids at the card table. I didn't. My mother said, "You break your father's heart. So if you have to be here, please stay out of his way." All right, gee, okay, thanks, Mom. And once again, I'm the one that they threw away in the family. We've got Nurse Sally in Alaska with a horse and married to a commercial fisherman. And my dad loves to go to Alaska. He hated to come to LA with the traffic and the craziness. He would sit under a tree and read a book. And then he's got my brother who has a doctorate. And then the hero child who had her name on an airplane, a 777, because she traveled so much for Cigna. And she was able to make these deals in Japan that nobody was able to make a deal, especially a woman. So United put her name on a 777, and I saw her plane. She never saw her plane. She got to see where it was flying to if she would Google it. But I saw her plane when I pulled into LAX once. And I got to take pictures of it, and I sat in the pilot's seat. This is before 9/11, so I got to do it and I was gonna airbrush out her name and put my first name in there, because she would use the maiden name, our family name. but I didn't do it. I stopped. I stopped. So that's how much me and my sister competed. And I had made amends to her. Yes, I did. I had made amends to her, but it took her until I was 40 years sober. So it was almost 6 years ago that my sister finally looked at me as her sister. And I made amends to her, and I began again to make amends to her. She, oh no, didn't want to hear it. I paid her back the money she had owed me, that I had owed her for airline tickets. And, we were okay. But she didn't look at me as her sister. And the very interesting thing about that is, guess who's an alcoholic? My older sister. We had no idea that she was drinking 5 quarts of Jack Daniels from the liquor store after her husband died. She was living in Pennsylvania in Bucks County in a big house by herself. After her husband died, she was drinking herself to death. And when we walked in there, it was like, wow. And she had had some falls, and she had had some brain bleeds, and she also what the doctor said, she had alcoholic dementia. This brilliant Mensa older sister of mine is now a woman who doesn't know how to turn on an iPhone, needs help in the shower to know which way to go for hot. But one of the beautiful things is when that happened, my mother's gone, my father's gone, my family came to me. My family came to me for help because I'm an example of the beauty of what Alcoholics Anonymous can do to mend the fences. So my dad walked me down the aisle at 2 years of sobriety to this Boy Meets Girl in AA campus who I was married to until I was 10 years sober. And my dad bought the big book, went to a meeting, thought you guys were fun, read the big book. And when he got to the point where it says most alcoholics owe money, my brother said he went to the office, he pulled out my dossier, and he started running a calculator tape. Because my dad's a businessman. So he ran this calculator tape, and my mother said he put it in the part of the book where I guess it says most alcoholics owe money, but there was a calculator tape in the big book sitting in his books stacked by his chair. So I didn't know any of this. And at 5 years, I got another sponsor who was lovely. Ginny was lovely. She gave me a couple of huge gifts. And one of them was, I called her one day to complain about my husband being mean to me. We got to call our sponsors and whine about our relationships, right? I always thought that. I thought, okay, if I jump off that balcony at 2.5 years ago when I was crazy, I'll just break my neck on that railing and I'll just have to lay there in the hospital and all my girls will come in and whine and all I'll be able to do is blink. They'll whine about their relationships. They'll whine about their nail polish. They'll whine about whatever, their job they don't like, and I'll be blinking. And I just thought, oh my God. So I have a very macabre mind. And you know what? I let it work for me. I let it work for me. So I was complaining about my husband being mean to me. And she said, it's time you make financial amends to your father. And I thought, what's that about? I thought I was just supposed to go home and be happy. That's all he wanted me to be happy. So I thought, well, I'll call him. So I called him and he was ready for me. He answered the phone and gave me the total, which was very high. I don't think I was shocked that he answered the phone and gave me the total. I think I was shocked by the amount. So I called her back and she laughed. Sponsors laugh. Thank God. I hope you have a sponsor louder than your head. I've had a sponsor louder than my head. I had Janet, Ginny, Clancy, and now I have a lady named Nancy M, who I love. Things are working for us. And I had the blessing from my sponsor before he left the planet too, which I liked. So there I am. And I called my dad back and he accepted my payment terms. And she said, oh, okay, accepted. Then she said, all right, then do not be late. This is being the example. See, I was guided in situations to be the example of Alcoholics Anonymous that I didn't know was going to work by making ripples out in the world, ripples of joy, ripples of love, and not even knowing where the ripples are going. And then once in a while, you keep your eyes and ears and heart open, you get to see a ripple hook up with another ripple and hit the shore, and you know why it happened. It's rare, but it happens once in a while. I like those awake moments. I like those moments where I can hear the birds in the morning. They sound like diamonds to me. I like those moments of quiet. I like those, just those where everything comes together and you just go, oh, that's why. And your heart gets a little bigger like the Grinch. So, okay, so I called him back. He accepted. She said, then don't be late with that check. You're the only example of Alcoholics Anonymous that your father and your family may ever see. So be a good one. And she said, and besides, Bill and Bob are watching. Oh, that's a good one. Lay that on someone. Bill and Bob are watching. Oh my God, I'll disappoint God, Jesus, Dalai Lama. I'll disappoint everybody, but not Bill and Bob. So I was not late with that check to my dad. And she said she changed my life by saying, are you willing to grow through this with your dad? I love to be in these. Pain is the touchstone. Pain is the willingness. Pain is when I finally go, okay, okay, okay. I'm tired, yet holding this up is tiring. Okay, okay. What do you have for me? And I'm in a corner, so I can't get out. So that's when I usually give up. And she said, are you willing to grow through this with your dad? And I went, okay. I put a note about Sharon's life with that check to your father. Don't send the cold, hard cash alone in the envelope. Tell your dad about your life. What? I go to jail panels. I sponsor people. We're like, working on defects of character. What do I tell my dad? She didn't. She just said, tell your dad about your life and don't be late with the check. So she'd ask me, did the check go on time? Did you put a note in about your life? She checked up on me. I love that sponsors make you accountable. I love that. Now I'm accountable to me just because they taught me so well. I know when I'm off the beam because it hurts. It hurts. It hurts to not be awake. I'm not happy. I'm not joyous. I'm not grateful. I'm like, ugh. Then I got to do the work and practice and continue and do what's necessary. Tell on myself, do some writing, work with others, throw myself more deeply into it. And then I can get back on the beam. But sometimes I don't see that surrender so easily. And I need a sponsor to say, okay, don't be late. Put a note in. And it was the hardest thing I did was to write my father a newsy note about daughter number 2, the alcoholic in LA. It's the hardest thing I did. And for 4 years and 10 months, my dad got a check and a note or check and a little letter. I remember I had some stationery and I wrote him a note one day on the stationery, and it was a shorter piece. It wasn't a big piece. It had turtles on the bottom of the stationery. And I wrote and I wrote and I got to the turtles and I was like, oh, I didn't even edit one line. I was just writing to my dad. I was beginning to feel the transformation happening as I was in the process of this consistent direction from my sponsor on paying back the money I owed him. And for 4 years and 10 months, my dad got a check and a note, a check and a note, a check and a note. And he called me the day after Christmas. I remember Boxing Day. He said, Merry Christmas, happy Boxing Day, daughter. He said, you know what? I don't want your money anymore. Free and clear. Don't send me any more money. But don't stop sending me your notes. And I had no idea that the innocence was going to come back. The innocence between dad and me after everything he knew about me. She knew it could happen. See, my perception gets a little skewed between me and me because I'm in there, and I have that evil twin. I don't know about you guys, but she wakes me up sometimes and she's got ideas. She's got ideas. But between me and my sponsor's air, and I have a consistent phone call with my sponsor. I have a consistent time I see my sponsor at meetings. I have, if I need to do an inventory, are you speaking somewhere? Let me go with you and read this to you. I need to talk to you about something. I have never been untethered. Sometimes I'm out there, but I'm still tethered. And I think that we're all in this boat together. And sometimes we get tired of rowing. I get it. But there's somebody next to me that says, hey, Sharon, you look tired. I'll row for you for a while. Lay your oar in your lap. I'll get it for a minute. Just I got your hand, just sit and listen, just sit and cry, just sit and whatever you need. I'll row for you for a while because I'm in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not on the edge. I think that or we get, I asked Clancy about the invisible boat. He's got that story about the invisible boat. I said, Clancy, what does the or say? He says, willingness. Don't ever forget the first or is willingness. Willingness. I want to always have a beginner's mind. I love that second appendices that, where there's a principle which is bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Mr. Herbert Spencer. Wow. I have to get in. I have to suit up in the game and see what the game's about. Maybe I'm not a good player, but I'm going to suit up and show up. And that's what you taught me to do. I have smart feet. You taught me that in the beginning. My feet know where to go. My feet walk by the liquor store. My feet would walk to a meeting. My feet would walk over across the room and welcome a newcomer when my head didn't want to, my heart didn't want to, but my feet went first. And I still have smart feet. And that I was taught that early on, just by having commitments. That's something that kept me in the game. I don't know about you, but I have a little bit of an ego. If I'm a cookie girl, it's got a little power. Cookie girl's got power. I don't know if any of you remember Clint Hodges, but he was a great member of our group. Clint was great. And one night I spilled hot coffee on him. I was, putting out the cookies and I must have hit the spigot of the big coffee pot that was there and it was on his hand and he yelled and screamed at me. And I just thought, wow, it's hot coffee, but I don't get it. I'm just saying Clint's screaming at me. He's an old timer. He's not supposed to act like that. I was in my first year of sobriety. It was like shocking. And so Cookie Girl's got a little power. This is my defiance. Clint likes Fig Newtons. Okay. Next week, that tray had no Fig Newtons on it. Week after that, that tray had no Fig Newtons on it. And then maybe it was the third week, Clint said, hey, Sharon, how come there's no more Fig Newtons coming out here this kitchen? I don't know, Clint, they've just been out. I got to make amends to Clint for that too. We laughed about that. And Clint taught me something else too. I was deferring a little bit to that man I married when I was 2.5 years sober, when my dad walked me down the aisle and somebody took a picture and we were eye to eye because I was in those amends with my dad. I was going home happy, all of that was happening. And my dad, I love that photo. I'm having a Peggy Lee moment. Is that all there is to a wedding? And my father's talking to me and we're eye to eye. We're eye to eye. It's a great shot. But who knew any of that was going to happen? And at 10 years of sobriety, I had a child who's 36 now and who doesn't seem to have the earmarks of alcoholism at all. He's gone through his own stuff, but he's happy, joyous, and free in his life. He has passion and compassion for his life and what he does. And he sent me a text yesterday. He's working in Atlanta. And he said, hi, Mom, miss you. I miss home. What? I miss home? It's like, okay. But anyway, I had this child and the baby was 1.5 years old when my husband decided he wanted the newcomer in the room. There was a newcomer in the room that he seemed to like a little better than his wife. So, and that was when my sponsor, my Ginny, who I love dearly, had me write those notes to my dad. Had me, look at my wrongs and things that were really hard to look at. She did some great things for me. Got off the plane from Paris, France with 21 days because she'd been smoking pot in Paris. She didn't have her 21 years. And my husband left me for this newcomer. Ginny's got 21 days. I picked her up at the airport. I dropped her off in Venice where she lived. She met my son. I'm driving by Lake Street where Clancy lives and I'm thinking, I'm going to run. I'm already planning my trip to Paris. I'm already planning where I'm going to get my baby a passport if he needs it. I'm already planning, I'm a runner. And I haven't run for 10 years. And I'm driving by Clancy's house, and somehow I just pulled over and stopped the car, put my baby in the stroller, walked up to his house. It was a Saturday afternoon. I rang the doorbell. He came to the door, pushed in my baby, and started to bawl, not just cry, bawl. He said, I sat by the fireplace for 20 minutes while he played with my son, who was happy, and I just sobbed. And then I would take a breath and he'd go, okay, okay, we'll try. We'll try. We just wanted to, okay, we'll try. And we laughed about that every time I ever went to his house. We laughed about that. Right there, you sat for 20 minutes and bawled, sobbed, slung snot. And so we tried for, like I said, 36 years. And thank God he was louder than my head, because I was 10 years sober and planning my escape. And nobody got custody of the meeting. Nobody got custody of the meeting. They were there. I was there. I had to sit in the front so that I couldn't look at the back of their heads. And it was hard. It was very hard. And you guys knew about it. You guys knew this was going on. Nobody told me. Now, now I'm betrayed. Now I am betrayed in my safe place in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's where I went with it. I am betrayed. And I'm a Leo and a Leo rising. I don't know if that means anything to you, but it means I am very stubborn and I am loyal to a fault. To a fault. I'll hang on your leg all the way out the door if we're not done yet. So I felt extremely betrayed by all of you. And so I'd sit in the front with my torn jeans. I mean, I didn't dress like that in AA. I cut my hair Madonna white. I used spiking gel so that nobody would get near me, because I might hit you with my spikes, my spiked hair. It might hurt. I had t-shirts I would wear. There was a big punk rock thing going on then. So I went out to go in the mosh pit because I was pissed off at the world. And then I get knocked around and go, oh no, I've been there, done that. And I stopped, but I had a big t-shirt. We would go to this group called the Cramps. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Actually, the lead singer is buried next to Dr. Bob practically in Akron. He was from Akron. So we go to the Cramps concert. So I made a big shirt that said Midol on it. And I wore my Midol shirt to the meeting. And I sat in the front row with my arms folded, my legs kicked out, and my torn jeans and my spiky hair and my scowl. And you wanted to get in the row, I wouldn't even lift my legs. Walk over me, walk over me, walk over me. And there was a lady who was actually married to Clint. Her name was Pat Hodges. And she was in the CIA at one time. And I don't know if you have anybody in the group who's scary, but she was scary. She was scary. I remember my very first commitment. I didn't know what to do. I was wired up. You're putting ashes in the sink and cups in the sink. And now I'm supposed to wash. And I don't know. There's ashes and cups and cigarette butts in the sink. I don't know what to do. I'm standing there frozen. And this is meeting her, walked up behind me and said in my ear, wash. Okay, I'll wash. I mean, sometimes I need just direction. And she scared me. She was stronger than me, and I washed. And she that night she had to walk over my legs, very disrespectful of me. She had much more time. She had to walk over my legs to get in the row, and she had a newcomer in tow, because I knew she was a newcomer because I had seen her earlier in the day. And she had the newcomer in tow, and she stopped somewhere along getting over my legs, and she looked at the newcomer, looked at me, looked at the newcomer, and said to the newcomer, looking at me, look at Sharon. She's got 10 years. Do you want what she's got? And you know what? It pierced me. I heard her. And I thought, wow, what kind of an example of Alcoholics Anonymous am I being? It got me. I was ready to hear it. And Clint had taught me coffee hurts. So I am on my way from my last hurrah to throw some hot coffee on the happy couple in the back of the room, pregnant and married in that order. And Clancy happened to be there that night. Thank God, because this was not an emotionally sober moment. I was going to hurt them with this hot coffee. 2 big hot cups of black coffee. And he happened to be there. He's gone a lot, but he happened to be there that Saturday night. He saw where I was headed. He saw probably the look in my eye. There were tables at our Saturday night meeting at the time. He stopped me. He took the coffee out. He set it on the table. He grabbed one shoulder, grabbed the other shoulder, and he stopped me in my tracks. And he said, Sharon, you're going to walk through this with dignity and grace. And if he wouldn't have gone to the next little line, I would have said, I want revenge. I I have I have a spare set of keys to his car. I know where to drive it so that the tide takes it out in the middle of the night. I'm going to go do that next. But he had me like this, and he said, dignity and grace, so you can be an example to others. Here we are again. That example. Oh my God. Bill and Bob are watching. So I said, I gave it up. I gave it up. And I had to be kind. I had to be kind because he wouldn't let me talk about her, my son's new stepmom, who was going to have his half brother. And they would go over there and he would tell me how great she was and what she had done for him. And my sponsor said, bite your tongue. Don't say anything. Bite your tongue. Bite your tongue. Don't say anything bad about her. Literally, I know that I made it bleed. I know I made it bleed. But I was willing to take the action. And I had no idea any feelings were going to follow. Any. I wanted to be an example of Alcoholics Anonymous, somehow, somewhere deep in my heart, with what you had done with me and your kindness and your love and your safety that you gave me when I walked in here. So I bit my tongue and bit my tongue. And my son 2 years ago was working in France, and he came home and he had heard one of my talks. He never hears my talks, but he asked for it. And so somebody sent him one of my talks. His girlfriend at the time, the fake wife, but that's a whole nother story. We can't talk about that. We had a fake wedding in France with a fake wife. Anyway, it's a whole thing. And he came out of it okay. It took him a year though. It took him a year. Her mother was an alcoholic, so he wanted her to hear my story. So he listened to it with her. And then we had coffee when he came home, and he said, Mother, I didn't know that you went through all of that with Jill. That's the second wife's name. I had no idea you went through all of that with Jill. He didn't even know. He didn't even know because I bit my tongue. And it was like, wow, he got to make up his own mind about his own life. I didn't, the sins of the father on the children, I didn't have the sins of the mother on my son. I didn't warp him. I didn't take away any love he had for her, any kindness she had for him. I bit my tongue because my sponsor asked me to do so. And I don't know why I was so good at following direction at that time, probably because I had no other friendly direction and it was louder than my head. And you know what? Kids figure it out on their own anyway. We're driving off to Catholic school one day. He's in his little uniform, and his dad left Jill for number 3, went to number 3 wife. And he said to me, Mom, my dad's a marrying fool. I was like, oh my God, okay. I never said that. He just got that on his own, I guess. And it's unfortunate because his dad's very creative and very fun, but he wants to be the orphan. Don Pritz tried to help him. Joe Hawk tried to help him. All the Clint tried to help him. All kinds of people tried to help him with inventories, and he was a foster child and he couldn't ever reconcile that. So he stayed a foster child and he couldn't connect to his children. And, so guess who raised their children fatherless? The second wife and me. And then she told me when he left her, this is the ringer, this is a ripple hitting the shore coming together. She said, you know what? I knew I could walk through it with dignity and grace because I had watched you. My example was not for her, anybody else in the whole world, but not for her. But she was the one that got it. God, I'm having fun here. I don't know if you guys are, but now this is definitely, I'm showing you how sober, how the mind how the mind centers, how the alcoholism. I do not crave a drink of alcohol. I have been relieved of that bondage. I have been, it's come up very few times, and it's only come up when my ego's there. And I've been able to trace it to ego. Sitting on a plane, bumped up to first class. Hallie's sitting right over there. Beautiful woman, friendly, smiling, drinking champagne. And I'm thinking, what is it, over 20,000 feet? Is it really a drink? I'm starting with that, right? And I'm thinking, there's seats by Hallie. I could over there and just have a little champagne with her and have a moment. It's one of my little idols. And it was like, whoa, whoa. May I have some water, please? I'm thirsty. Much of the time when I start to salivate because of there used to be a priest talk about making a martini, Father Bill from San Diego, making a martini and how it sounded and the moving this and then the vermouth. And I was like, oh, salivating by the time he was done. I'm a tequila drinker. I just shoot it down and get crazy. I love tequila. But, it's usually when I'm starting to feel that, or I'm at a work party, I know what to do. I know what to do. I like to tell the guys serving the drinks, I don't want any alcohol. I want plain cranberry juice, plain cranberry juice. Me, look at me. I'm an alcoholic. Serve me no alcohol. Because there's been one moment when I was in Mexico at a work thing that I got a sip of something and I gagged it out. And this was before cell phones. I couldn't call my sponsor. I must have been only like 2.5 years sober. Walked up and down the beach all night long, all night long, all night long, all night long. And she said, "No, Sharon, your sobriety's an act." But it was like it scared the crap out of me. Just two little hairs stood up. But it was like, I don't mess with mouthwash or any of that because I don't want to wake up the dragon. No, I don't want to wake up the dragon. I don't mess with any of it. And I just, it's when my ego's there. It's when my ego's there that I start thinking about it. But most of the time, I'm recovered from that. How come I'm not recovered from where alcoholism centers in the mind? Because it's about spiritual growth. It's about the spirit. It's about, I can't do it. God has to do it. And I have to create the soil within which God can come and help. God, I asked you, I'm not a gambler, but God, please, I asked you, I can't gamble anymore. And here I am sitting in the casino. Where are you? Well, your feet took you to a casino. What am I supposed to do now? I mean, I have to create the soil within which God can come and help me remove the defects of character, my fear, what stands in the way of my usefulness to you and others. Don Pritz used to talk about, one of the most deprived states a human being can be in, and especially for an alcoholic, if we don't get to this, is to have no purpose. Is to have no purpose. And I have purpose today. I put myself to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. And I buried my father. I buried my husband. 24 years of being with him. I buried my mother 5 years later. Buried my husband's son a year after that. Buried a lot of animals and dogs and things I love, but they've never left my heart. I think broken open hearts heal bigger. I think broken open hearts heal bigger. And I think we're all stitched together. It's just all stitched together with just stitches of love to keep it all together. And every once in a while, the pain is so great, a stitch will break. And then I got to talk to you and I got to cry and I got to take a walk and I got to go to another meeting and maybe I got to see a movie or I got to rent beaches so I can cry. I mean, when my husband got diagnosed with malignant melanoma, I didn't cry. I didn't cry. They gave us 7 months and I didn't cry. And what happened was I woke up with a panic attack at 2 a.m. thinking I was having a heart attack. And they called the paramedics because I guess I passed out. And I'm sitting in my living room at, I don't know, 2, 3 in the morning with paramedics. They're trying to put nitroglycerin under my tongue and I don't know how to lift my tongue. And I don't know what's going on. I got to tell you girls though, we're funny. I said, who are these handsome paramedics doing? What are they doing in my living room? That's my first thought. Oh, alcoholics. I swear to God. And then my husband showed, he said, you do this with your tongue. So I did it and they put the nitro under and then they took me in the ambulance to this hospital and then they drip. I didn't have anything in I didn't have a heart attack. They checked it all. They were giving me, they were giving me stuff because I needed, I don't know, they didn't give me any drugs, but they gave me like hydration and all that fluid. And And so then they said, well, we're going to give you tests. So then they checked me into a room, and they checked me into a room with somebody having impacted bowels. This is like, so I'm in a room with somebody with impacted bowels, and I'm like, got my shoes and my purse and everything on. So when they changed her, I was out the door. People had walked by going, oh my God, what's that smell? And I'm like dying, trying to wait. I've got to have heart tests. I've got to have echocardiogram. I got to do all of this stuff because I want to make sure I'm okay. And then at the end of the day, waiting through all of this, I finally, like at 6 o'clock at night, I got the cardiologist with all the test results. And it was a woman, and she called me in, and we sat down in her office, and she said, everything looks good. You have a little bit thicker part in your one ventricle. That's usually people who do a lot of aerobics. Do you do a lot of aerobics? I thought, no. She said it just could be hereditary. And she said, but that's it. It just has to pump a little harder, and it's not a problem. But everything else looks great. What's going on with you? And I said this and that and this and that. And then I threw in there that my husband just got diagnosed with, malignant melanoma, liver, lung, and bone inside. And she said, oh, have you cried? And I had to think about that. No, I hadn't cried. She said, you've got to cry. How simple is that I couldn't let myself cry? I'll show that cancer. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to have the best insurance. We're going to go here. We're going to get the best oncologist. We're going to fight. We're going to do what we got to do here. And she said, she was from Africa, and she was from an area where she had to work her way out. She had to work her way into being able to go to college, being able to go to medical school, being able to become a doctor and live in Los Angeles. She had to work hard for that. She said, what we did to survive, we all got together, the women, once a month. We made food, we sang, we cooked. It was just us women getting together, and we cried for everything that made us sad that month. And then we dry our tears, we hug each other, we go back to our families, and we do it again next month. You need to cry. Wow, something so basic. And she was my angel. I've had a lot of angels in this beautiful life of Alcoholics Anonymous. Beautiful life of Alcoholics Anonymous. I sponsor the Force for Good. I do. They are fabulous women, and they're sponsoring. And in this Zoom year, there's been more connection. We have sobriety. We have now 1 year, people celebrating 2 years. We've got newcomers coming, and those girls are all over it. We are an amazing, amazing force when it's we. I am one person in the boat with one oar, helping the boat go. I am not the one that handles the rudder. Sometimes there is no wind, and we can just kind of sit there for a while and catch up. And then the wind will come, and then Gandhi used to say, I love storms. I love storms. I mean, he was a guy that believed in peace, and he loved storms because he could become more peaceful, more loving, more compassionate. And that's where he took it. Wow. And our Saint Francis at the prayer. I love Francis's history, that he came from a family of wealth. He had everything he wanted, and they thought he was crazy giving it up to go help others, to go out on a quest, to be more loving, more kind, bring more compassion, bring more joy to the world. And he had crazy people following him, kind of like Bill. The first ones were crazy. There's an old Italian black and white movie, if you ever get to see it, of St. Francis. It's got subtitles, but it shows how it really was. They lived in a mud hut. They just drank broth. They were together. They had a quest, and they were happy. They were forming the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This book, it's a divinely inspired program. It's a divinely inspired book. And Bill came out of his moment. And Dr. Silkworth said, wow, Bill, I don't know what happened to you, but it's pretty good. I'd hang on to it. And if it would have been me, I probably would have said, you know, whatever you gave me last night, give it to me again. That was pretty good. But no, Bill said, I think I need to help others with this. We sit in the middle. We're dead people sitting in the middle of a place where we have been given a chance to be reborn, transformed, transmuted into spiritual principles to help others so that mothers can sleep at night, so that fathers don't have to bury their sons, so that the children that are living in an alcoholic home can have some hot food. It's not about me. And I'm so grateful it's not about me. And I want to end with my dad, because my dad 12-stepped the town drunk because I was an example of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he came to my dad and complained. And my mother told me this after my father was gone. And my dad said to him, it's not your wife's fault. You're an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous has helped my daughter. Maybe it'll help you. And he gave him the book. Now, I heard this after my dad was gone, because it's a good thing that I didn't know a lot of things before my dad was gone, because I might have been a little bit defiant. It might have taprooted, it might have sprung up more stuff in me. So I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking, wow, that's really something. So I talked about it at a meeting in Thousand Oaks. And it was one of those nights I didn't want to go because it was raining. I didn't want anybody to be in the car with me because I was tired of listening. I just want to play loud music and drive in the rain and complain about all the people in LA that can't drive in the rain. So, but I showed up and I was almost late because it was a gridlock, and I showed up and I'm tired and grumpy. And some reason I told the story about my dad 12-stepping the town drunk in Mount Vernon, Iowa. And after the meeting, this girl came up to me and she looked at me and she said, do you recognize me? Can I talk to you? And I thought, well, not really, but sure, let's talk. She told me who she was, and I had babysat her in Lisbon, Iowa. And then I had to apologize for smoking the pot. You know, it's like, oh my God, are you all right? And she said, you talked about my Uncle John. My Uncle John is now sober and stayed sober. Your dad, 12-step, my Uncle John. I didn't know that. And she said to me, and you know what happened? 2 years ago, I went home to a family reunion, and my Uncle John 12-stepped me, and I have 2 years. Standing right in front of me, the ripple hit the shore. Right in front of me. We don't know. We don't know what it means. I don't know what my broken open heart means. I don't know what any of it means. All I know is that I need to come to life like this. I need to come to life with my hands, my heart open, and my feet smart, because I have been given the keys to the kingdom. I have been given more than I know that I ever thought I could have in my life, and I'm not done yet. I can love more. I can continue to grow and be creative and have joy and fun. And I'm working a great little job that works for me, and I've got a couple of other businesses I'm doing, and you know, I am most of the time, as my friend Sandy used to say, I am most of the time the least disturbed person in the room, because I'm the one here with me. So thank you for listening to all of this. You guys took so much out of me. I love you. Thank you for letting me be with you. Thanks for sharing your heart with me.
Oh man, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Sharon. Hey, so the way we do this is we usually have the person who speaks call on a couple people. So we have a few minutes left. Can you see the screen?
Well, I don't know if Tom's still here, but I thought I saw him come in.
Oh yeah, Tom's here. Tom?
It's his fault I'm here, so.
I know.
Sharon, thank you so much. My God, that was fantastic. That was fabulous. Really, really thank you. You know, this is one of the best. This is our favorite meeting. You know, Mary Thayer calls it her Zoom home group, but you blew it out of the water. You know, you're one of my heroes, and I don't know if you knew that or not, but you absolutely are. You know, Don, a couple of years before he died, he said to me, you know, our deal in AA is we have too many speakers and not enough storytellers. And he said, we should be telling stories. You know, we're like the Native American tradition where We don't write a lot of stuff down. We're an oral tradition. And that's exactly what you did tonight. You didn't mention the golden rail, but I'm going to forgive you for that. And I love you very much. Thank you so much. And just, you know, thinking about Casey and how much I admired him and how much I cared for him. Thanks so much, Sharon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Golden Rail, we both drank there in New York, probably at different times, but it was a good bar. I don't know who else is here. Shoot. I think I saw the other Veronica's in here. If she's still here. Is she still here?
Is the other Veronica here?
You are, Veronica.
Hi, I'm Veronica. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Veronica.
And Sharon, thank you so much. I'm privileged and honored to be sponsored by Sharon, and I just feel really overpaid with gratitude that you're such a beautiful example to me, and that you inspire me to do better, you know, and you're definitely louder than my head, and I'm just overpaid, and emotional sobriety, like that is my number one goal every day to like grow up, you know, and you and Alcoholics Anonymous is teaching me how to grow up, you know, and at 16 years of sobriety, I'm still trying to grow up, you know, and I just love what this program has taught me. It's taught me how to act better than I feel. You know, I love what you said about keeping your mouth shut, you know, all that. And it's been a hard year. There's been a lot of pain around me. I'm here in Colorado Springs helping, being of service to my sister who has bone cancer. And it's so hard because I just want to cry all the time. But I don't. I act strong. And at nighttime, I'll have my good cry. And, you know, you guys are showing me the way. You guys showed me how to show up and just be of love and service. And I'm just overpaid. And Sharon, I just love you. And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for calling on me.
Thank you, Veronica. I see a gentleman named Rick in Toronto. I think I know that guy.
Rick.
Well, Sharon, thank you. What a blessing to come into this great meeting and hear you tonight. The last face-to-face conference I was at, you were there. Haven't been to one since. God willing, we will be somewhere along the way. I am so moved by the amends story. I couldn't help but think that when I made the amend to my mother for the negligence and the hatred I spewed at her, I blamed her for most of what went on as opposed to the alcoholic. And when I said to her, I said, "What can I do to make that up to you, Mom?" She was so simple. She said, "I just want you to drop by and see me, come over and have some dinner. Give me a call every once in a while. I just want to know how you are." Just like that story you shared about your dad. Gave him all the money. It wasn't the money. It was about those notes. And that's what it was about for my mom. And so I did that. And I did it right to the very end of her life. And when she was dying, she was in the hospital and she couldn't see anymore. And so I sat with her and I read her, you know, she'd been a long time member of Al-Anon. And I read her books to her. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience that came because of making an amend and following through with that action. And just like I said, just being as loving as I can be and taking those actions. And we have no idea where God will bring us when we take those actions. And you just, you spoke about that in spades tonight. So God bless you. And there's something very intimate about this Zoom, just seeing you sitting there in the chair in your home. I just kind of feel like I know you a bit more tonight. So blessings to you, Sharon. Wonderful to see you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. I see a lady from Boulder, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy, I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Sharon. I believe you spoke at one of the very first Fellowship with the Spirits in Colorado, And I thought, oh my God, if this is sobriety, I want what this chick has. There are so many points of identification, and I appreciated that. The stories of amends, the stories of your kiddo. And I believe I still remember like the beacon truck, and you were looking for like your higher power. And that was like however long ago that was. That was like almost 30 years ago. And how well, I mean, I didn't know this was the same Sharon that was going to be speaking here tonight. So funny coincidences, and good to see Tom and Juanita. So I think one of the points of identification is like that broken open heart. I had a very similar, seemingly cardiac event that happened on St. Patrick's Day of 2015. And it wasn't a heart attack, but it was all that same stuff that you described and all these tests. And what it came down to, rather than needing to cry, is my heart, my spirit heart needed to be broken open. And it looked like a physical heart attack, but it wasn't. And just living with that sense of a broken open heart, which feels like the worst thing to imagine doing, but it's the best thing. And I think that with an open heart comes more expansive love, and that's what it comes down to. I dabble in a couple of other little spiritual thingies. One of them is A Course in Miracles, and one of the things that I like is that in Alcoholics Anonymous is we stay over here on our side of the street, which is that any time I have a perceived wrong done to me, I put aside entirely what somebody else has done, and as it evolved, as I look to see, oh, wow, look at this opportunity to grow. And so, gosh, I just am so delighted that to hear after all of these years, I feel like I know you because I've heard your story before. So thank you, dear one. Wonderful to hear you.
Thank you, Kathy. Good to see you again. I was looking at, is it Tommy O. Rome? I like the name.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon, for speaking, telling your story this evening. I had no idea how emotional I was going to become. So you obviously have spoke from your heart to mine, and you spoke of Clancy, and Clancy has always been one of my favorites. And I may have this wrong, but is he the same person that used to speak of the spring being inside of him? Okay, yeah. So I used to commute a long distance to work, and on the commute, I would listen to speaker tapes. And so Clancy was always a favorite of mine. So I think I've listened to hundreds of his talks. So when I heard you say that Clancy was your sponsor, oh my God, I was like, I had no idea. It was like you have descended from royalty in my mind. And that's never happened to me in the years I've been in AA. So tonight, I will always remember this. And I was really touched by your description of your father and how he 12-stepped the town drunk. And then how the person that, Uncle John 12-stepped his niece. And that really struck home for me, how we don't even know by our actions whose lives we are going to impact. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tommy. Is that it, Sam?
That's it. That's a wrap. So I tell you, we started this workshop almost a year ago during the pandemic, and it was originally just a meeting with my sponsees, and then opened up and to men, and then opened up to men and women, and then it's just kept growing. And every week now, work gets really intense, life gets really intense. I come and I'm like, oh man, this meeting's going to be an hour and a half. I better rush home. I just got done working out, and every week I just keep getting blown away by it. My heart just keeps getting more and more full, and it's not like there's a favorite. but every week I just keep getting my socks knocked off with it. So thank you for doing that tonight. It really opened my heart up a lot. And I think everybody here is blown away and really filled with love. And we really appreciate you coming tonight. So thank you. And next week we'll have Cliff G. The way we close this up, Sharon, is we just put ourselves on mute instead of having that kind of schizophrenic prayer where everybody's doing it on Zoom and there's a delay. We do we just go to our inner room and say the Lord's Prayer to ourselves inside, and meet you back here in a second. Thank you guys for a wonderful evening. And Sharon, I'll send you the recording and I'll put the recording up on the FOTS Facebook friends page. So much love. Thank you so much for all you gave tonight. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon. Amazing.